Hello, friends, and welcome to Muscle Maven Radio. I'm your host, the Muscle Maven, Ashleigh Van Houten. Thank you so much for being here, as always. We are marching slowly and steadily to the end of 2021. Kind of a trip, really. This year was nuts. I mean, I had a lot of changes this year. I don't know about you guys, but kept me on my toes. I'm excited for the coming year to see how the world will continue to change, how my life will continue to change. But I'm very much looking forward to a little bit of a break from the podcast here as we enter into the holidays. And I hope that you guys are planning some downtime and some fun, relaxing, rejuvenating time with yourself, with your family, all that good stuff. But before that happens, I do have some awesome guests for you and some last episodes before this year ends. And today is no exception. My friend, amazing human being, Jill Coleman is the guest today. You might know her on Instagram as Jill Fit, and that's her website as well. She is a business coach. She helps people in the health and fitness industry make money, build their business, understand their business. She has two podcasts. One is the Best Life podcast, and the other one, which I've been listening to a lot recently, is Fit Biz U, which is kind of short, really easily digestible snippets about some of the stuff we talk about in the podcast today, what to do as an entrepreneur in the health and fitness world. She has a program called Moderation 365, a course that helps people kind of get rid of that vicious cycle of obsessive eating, which I think probably all of us could benefit from. So that's a pretty cool program that she does. But we talk about a lot of stuff in this podcast. We talk about how much we love shoulder muscles. We're both basically wearing the same episode or outfit in this episode. If you watch it on YouTube, you'll see it's hilarious. But we talk about a bunch of stuff, including the fact that I actually used her services very recently as a consultant for my own fitness business project coming up that I just needed some advice. I needed some professional advice from someone that I respected and trusted in the industry. And I invested in that relationship, and we worked together on something that I actually feel very good about. So that was cool. We got to talk about that. We talk about some of the things she does in her own life, as well as in her sort of coaching capacity to improve productivity, efficiency, work-life balance, all of these things. She talks about anchor actions, what those are and how they help productivity. She talks about her daily nutritional commitments, her lifestyle commitments, what she does in a day, how she works, how frequently and often she works, how to prioritize a few things instead of trying to prioritize everything, which is a very common challenge with the type A people that I know are listening to this podcast. But we all know, we all figure out at one point or another that trying to do everything just makes us do a few things half-assed. So we talk about prioritizing. We talk about the benefits of attending masterminds and in-person development events and how that can help. We talk about how to invest in yourself as an entrepreneur, and this can be relevant to people outside of the fitness industry as well. So we kind of cover the gamut from health and fitness and wellness and lifestyle personally, and then how we can apply some of this amazing stuff she's learned over the course of her career to improving our own careers and our own professional endeavors. So this was an awesome one. She, like me, talks quickly, so this may be one episode that you do not need to speed up to get through on your walk. But this was super, super beneficial. I appreciate her so much. I think she's doing some really, really, as she says on her Instagram, no BS work for people, helping people really level up and understand health and nutrition and the business side of it as well. So I really hope you enjoy this episode. If you do, let me know. Tag us, tag at Jill Fit, tag me at The Muscle Maven on Instagram. Share this with somebody who you think could benefit. Guaranteed you know an entrepreneur out there who could use some help. And just pass it along. That would mean a lot to me. So that's it. I'll stop talking now. I hope you enjoy my interview with the awesome Jill Coleman. All right, Jill, welcome back to the podcast. Thank you for being here.
Oh my gosh, thanks so much for having me.
We cannot go any further without having a moment for the outfits right now. I don't know how many people listen to this, like, or watch this on YouTube versus listen to it. I think more people listen to it. So for those of you who are missing out on the richness of the multimedia experience here with the podcast, we are wearing very similar outfits. Just throw up one of these for me, just because I love it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Is that going to be the screenshot for the show? Probably.
Has to be. Yes. Ladies who love shoulders unite right now. Anyway, I had to throw that out.
I know, I'm obsessed with these one shoulder things for sure.
It just feels good. It's just nice. It's just, you get to, have a little bit of air, have a little bit of warmth. It's perfect. All right. So I have lots of questions that I would love to ask you. I'd love to pick your brain because since we met very briefly, I think it was years ago at a Paleo FX or something way back in the day. Yep. You really have been one of my favorite fitness business professionals to follow. And as somebody who is deeply entrenched in this world, I think, you just have always been somebody who continues to just be authentic and also helpful. And those two things are, surprisingly rare and incredibly valuable. So thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you so much for the kind words. Yeah. I mean, I think, I've been in this industry now for like full-time online, 11 years. So I think at some point you have to figure out a way to make it work long-term. Yep. And that's really, and honestly, value is the only way.
Yep. And I mean, but so much of what you say just like rings true to me. I want to just like share every single one of your like tweets in my stories, because like the concepts from everything from, we're in a sea of people saying, here's my quick fix. And you saying like, hey, when you're ready to like recognize that this takes a long time, I'll be over here with the like real information for you. I know it's not sexy. It just speaks to me on such a deep level. And so that's why I love to pick your brain about stuff like this, because I think a lot of my listeners are either people who find themselves in that frustrating place where they want to get healthier, they want to make a change, and they're torn between, these super sexy, provocative quick fixes and like knowing what the true path is. And also coaches and health professionals who listen to this, who are also caught in that same, place where they sort of are almost like, well, if I can just reel them in with that sexy through a 7-day thing and then actually teach them the real stuff, I don't know if that's the right path or not. So anyway, we'll unpack it all, because as you can tell, I've got my iced coffee and I've got lots of questions for you. Okay. But first, it is first thing in the morning on a Monday. You're on the West Coast, so it's pretty early for you, right?
It is. Actually, I was supposed to be on the East Coast when I originally scheduled this, and then I canceled my trip, and I was like, this woman has a newborn. I'm not going to change up her schedule on her. I'm usually up anyway. So yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Do you do your, like, what's your kind of like daily schedule in terms of your own taking care of yourself, like working out and like eating and meal prepping? Like, how does that work for you?
So it was interesting. Last week I was at a mastermind. I'm actually in a mastermind, and like super high level mastermind, multiple 7-figure business owners and all this kind of stuff. And one gal said to me, you really inspire me by how much you rest. And then someone else later in the weekend was like, you inspire me by how productive you are. So it's like, I think you can be both. So the answer to the question really is, I do take a lot of downtime, but that resting is actually working, because when I come back to my work, whatever that is, like I have designated sort of time, I do like time batching, I'm so much more focused. So to the average person, I probably work, 20 to 30 hours a week, not a ton, but I'm highly focused. Like that's literally like on the computer, writing emails, talking to clients, client facing stuff. So it does require a lot of presence and a lot of focus. And knowing that, I know that I have to work in strategic downtime. So I use something called anchor actions. Anchor actions are like 3 key behaviors that you are willing to do or committed to doing every single day that actually give you energy back. Now, you and I both know you can't make everything a priority, right? Like you can't be like, oh, I got to eat this and I got to drink a gallon of water. I got to sleep 8 hours. Like there's infinite amount of health behaviors that we could do. And if you ask the average person, they'd probably list out 20 things that they should be doing. But we know that mental energy and willpower is finite. So I sort of distill it down to 3 things. And the key with anchor actions is that they're not just like self-care, right? They're not necessarily like taking a bath or like, meditation or journaling. That can be them. But the key here is this: when you do them consistently, you come back to your work focused and refreshed and actually filled back up with energy. And so they're going to be different for everyone. For me, I have 3. I do at least 30 minutes of weight training every day. I do at least 30 minutes of leisure walking, because to me, that's a chance for me to disconnect, lower cortisol, hormonal sort of stuff, not burning calories, obviously. And then the last is sleeping 8 hours. And I know for a lot of people that sleep what is not possible. That's why I always say that it needs to be specific for you. If 8 hours is, or 9 hours, or however much isn't possible for you, what other things can you do? I know it sounds counterintuitive, but like maybe you have to like lay on the couch and read a fiction novel at like noon sometime. You know what I mean? Like these weird things that I sort of allowed myself to start doing. And at first it felt kind of lazy, to be honest. I was like, I need to be at my computer all the time, because we're in that sort of like, you got to be chained to your desk for 8 hours. Mm-hmm. So getting out of that headspace when I became an entrepreneur was really tough, because I was like, am I lazy? Am I not working enough? But what I found was I was so much more productive and so much more focused when I came back to my work. So for anyone listening, we all know what those things are, right? Can't be 20 things, 3 things, maybe 4 things max, and make those things a priority. And then everything else, don't worry about it. Like sometimes I'll have like, a bottle of wine for dinner. It's not my favorite, but like every once in a while, if I'm in the middle of a launch or something, mm-hmm. It's not a perfect health behavior. But I know that if I at least get my 3 big things in, that I'm going to be productive at work, and I'm going to be focused and going to be, in the headspace that I need to get work done.
I love that you just gave this to us off the top, because I actually think that this is probably one of the bigger points for a lot of, and I say women, and I know this is applicable for men too, but I know you and I both work with a lot of type A hard charging women. And this might be one of the biggest sticking points, is this like, I hate to feel lazy. I feel like any downtime is time that I could be doing something else. Yep. So I actually like, instead of trying to force somebody who's like never relaxed in their life to just relax, instead it's like repositioning it as doing something that is actually going to make you more productive, and even could be productive in the moment. Like going for a walk, and maybe during that walk, you're like picking up some groceries or something. I don't know, but like, it doesn't have to be exercise. It doesn't have to be sitting at your computer and like working away. I really like that. And I like the other point that you made that I want to highlight is, one of these big things being sleep, and how it's not possible for everybody all the time. And again, we tend to look at these health pictures as so black and white, like, well, I can't get the 8 hours of sleep, so I guess I suck and my sleep's going to be garbage and my health is going to be garbage. It's like, no, there's always different kind of like balls in the air. And if this one isn't going to be perfect, then what can you do instead? And it's always sort of like a dance and an evolution, and you can't carry them all. So like, which ones can you, and maximize those? I think
if you're listening to this and you're going, you know what, here's how you'll know if you need to start implementing this, is if you get to the end of your week and you say, God, I was so busy this week, but I have no idea what I got done. Like if you get to the end of the week and you're like, I was busy, but I have no idea what I actually did. That's a signal that you need to start really putting these sort of strategic rest periods throughout your day. And they don't need to be like long, right? 10 minutes of just disconnecting, like going for a light walk, like anything like that gives you energy back. And I was terrified to this. I actually read a book on this. It was all about sort of energy management, energy oscillation. And it's called The Powerful Engagement by Jim Lair, maybe. Okay. Years ago, probably 15 years ago. And at that time, I was someone who would have identified as busy, and also someone who really prided themselves on being busy. To me, without having the awareness, I was like, oh, this is how I derive a sense of self-worth. Like I'm just busier than the average person. Look at how important I am. I have all this stuff on my calendar. And when I listened to that book, it was really tough for me, but I was like, you know what, let me just try it, because the old way is always going to be there, right? I can always go back to filling up the calendar and whatever. So let me just try this. And I honestly, like you can't, like it worked. And that was all I needed. The proof was in the pudding. When I started to see it working, I was like, damn, this dude is right. And so I think if you give yourself that opportunity, it feels really just disorienting at first, but I was like, oh, this actually does work. And I came back and I was so much more productive. So releasing that need to be at a desk for 8 hours, working 50% or 40%, they actually showed in research that the average person only works 2 hours and 15 minutes a day out of those 8 hours. So like, what if you just were hyper focused for 4 hours, 3 hours, 5 hours, get so much more done. And then you give yourself the time and space to be present for the other areas of your life, whether it's friends, family, downtime, self-time. And I think this is definitely, I think it's an American thing. So I can't speak for Canada, but I think it's
same thing.
Yeah, it's North America.
We're just a slightly more polite version of everything that America does. So yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it is this feeling of attaching your self-worth to being busy. And I think it's really easy to fall into that trap. And also it could be a defense mechanism. It could keep you from doing something bigger, to just say, wow, I'm so busy. I have my schedule's full. I wish I could do that, but you know what? I just can't. It does kind of keep you in like a really safe holding pattern versus being like, wow, I actually do have the time and mental energy to start that business I've been thinking about, or write that book, or, speak, like a lot of people want to like do a TED talk or something like it keeps you from doing that bigger thing. So, and that's scarier, right? That accountability, that responsibility of doing something bigger. And also just high level, this is your life and you have to at some point relax into it. Like you have to just relax into it. You have to figure out a way to have longevity, not only in your actual life, but like longevity in your career or whatever it is that you want to do. And so you can't work 24 hours a day. So you need to figure out what works for you. And what works for me is about 5 to 6 hours, 5 days a week. And that is perfect.
And figure out how to enjoy it too, because some of us like being busier than others, but nobody likes being that manic version of busy where you don't know what you did that day. Like you can pretend you do, but again, like you said, I think that's a defense mechanism. Like no one likes being so busy that they feel manic and anxious and like they're running from one thing to another. Like there's a difference between being energized and excited about what you're doing and just being in like panic mode all the time. Right.
Totally. And I think, it is a way I think it's a little bit short-sighted to think that you don't have control over some of those things. And I know sometimes it feels like you don't. You go, well, you don't understand. I got to do that or else. And so we do sort of feel boxed in. But at the same time, like you do have a little bit of wiggle room if you considered it. So when you say, I can't do X, Y, and Z, what you mean is you could do it, but it'd be really uncomfortable. Yeah. And I was a full-time personal trainer for a lot of years. I was working about 70, 80 hours a week in the gym. And at that time, that was when I listened to this book and I was like, this dude doesn't get it. Like, there's no way I could change my schedule. I need this money, right? I was really operating in a lot of scarcity. And what I didn't realize was I could actually change my schedule a little bit. I could ask some of my clients to come in a little earlier, come in a little later, so I could batch my clients together. So I had, more open time for me to be creative and do whatever. And what I noticed was a lot of my clients were happy to shift their schedules around for me. I even increased my prices and 90% of my clients stayed with me. So you can do small things. It's scary, but you do have a lot more say than you think you do.
Yeah. I'm like deep in this process myself right now. Obviously, having a new baby prior to this, as an entrepreneur, I had to be somewhat scheduled, but I also had all the time in the world. And now that I don't, I absolutely can see the wheels turning in my brain where I'm like, well, I have a baby. I mean, I don't have a lot of like, I'm following his schedule, but it's like not really, you know what I mean? Like he throws an interesting dynamic into it, but I still have choice every day of like, during my downtime, am I going to watch Netflix or am I going to get some work done? Am I going to, like I can start creating some schedules. So like everything you're saying is hitting a little bit harder than it used to, but it's good. It's because no matter what, like you said, there is always some personal choice and decision making that can be made. There's a range, but like we all can make our own sort of schedule.
Yeah. And I'm also like not here to shame someone who just had a baby or like feels like they literally don't have the time. My whole thing is if you really enjoy being busy and I'm not a fan of like the no excuses. Everyone has the same 24 hours in a day. Like I don't subscribe to that. I'm like, look, sometimes laying on the couch and taking a nap is working, right? Like that's part of the work day. But I think if you do have some autonomy over your schedule and you still then make yourself really busy, then just own it. Yeah. Right. Like to me, just own it. Be like, yeah, I'm really busy and it's a really busy time and I won't be like this forever, but I'm going to own it. This is where I'm at in life. Then I'm like, cool. But if you have autonomy over your schedule, it is a disservice to say that you don't. Yeah. And to be like, well, I can't do that because when you have actual say in where you're spending your time. So my whole thing is like a lot of us, we do need that sense of busy. We especially in this, I just turned 40. So I feel like 30s and 40s is like that go time. It's like, cool, we're doing all the things. And I'm looking sort of 10 years from now going, Do I still want to be showing up on social media every day and like doing that sort of thing? So I'm trying to put things in place now. So maybe I do have to work a little bit more now, but I know at some point I'll be able to pull back. So, as long as you stay aware and then own it. Yeah. Perfect. Totally fine.
Speaking of owning it, so you mentioned sometimes wine is dinner. And I like this because you also, anybody who follows you can see that you are a very sort of, you're dedicated to your work and yourself, and you put the time and the effort in to take care of both of those things. But you also talk about when sometimes dinner is wine. And I appreciate that because, again, we have this like perfectionist fallacy online that like you're sorted out, you must be perfect and never make a mistake or never choose to just do something suboptimally, right? It's not a mistake. You just chose to do something differently. But I'm curious if, when you're working with clients and you're talking about some of these like basic, either good lifestyle or even business tenets, like things that are like, here's some things that you can try and that are going to be good for you to look into, whatever. Is there anything that you tell other people that they should do that you have a hard time with personally yourself?
No, not necessarily, only because it feels really misaligned for me. So one of my core values at Jill Fit is congruency, which is extremely important to me, like realness, congruency. I want to be the same person online that I am in person, that I am like anywhere that you run into me. So congruence is actually a value system of the business, which means that I would literally be out of integrity if I was telling someone to do something that I'm not doing. And this goes for business as well. I'm just very open and very transparent with the ways in which I'm not perfect. And to me, I don't think that's the goal. I don't think the goal is perfection. I think the goal is what can I do sustainably? What can I do consistently? And what's just going to check a couple boxes and going to move the dial for me big time, which is why things like an anchor action is a way to almost compromise. And so I have a nutrition philosophy called Moderation 365, and it literally is exactly what it sounds like: eating moderately 365 days a year. Now, I think a lot of people have different, they see that the concept of moderation differently. Has different meanings. And what it means for me is what's good enough? And for a lot of us, like you mentioned earlier, these sort of type A, very driven women, like good enough isn't good enough, right? Good enough isn't good enough. They go, it's not hardcore enough. It's not extreme enough. I'm not going to get the results fast enough. And so things like anchor actions are actually a compromise and a practice in choosing a middle choice versus I got to go all the way or I'm not going to do it at all. I go, let's just do a couple things really well. That's it. Right. So I'm very much like play to your strengths versus try to bring up your weaknesses. I think that's a huge waste of time. I think you can, that kind of stuff. Like, so what I say is, 3 things. Part of my nutrition philosophy is what we call DNCs, or daily nutritional commitments. Same concept as anchor actions, but for food behaviors. So 3 things that you do consistently every single day. And when you do them, a lot of your eating becomes automated. So for example, and you'll get this obviously, Ashleigh, but like having a high protein diet. For me, I have protein every meal. That is part of my DNCs. And when I do that, it takes the edge off my hunger and cravings enough that I don't find myself wanting to binge. And so for me, having protein to every meal is a daily nutritional commitment. Now, again, with that being said, not everything can be important. So I'm not going to give someone 20 nutrition rules. I'm going to go, let's figure out what the 3 big diet movers are for you, that if we do them consistently, it takes care of like 80% of the equation. Then that last 20%, that's where we have to sort of troubleshoot. Okay, cool. I'm having, cravings for this, or I'm hungry here, or whatever. And then we sort of troubleshoot that nutritionally. And so I think having these sort of anchor actions or DNCs are a way for us to just compromise with ourselves to go, okay, I realize not everything is important, but what are the couple things that are really important? And there's a level of discernment there. Now, as we're talking about this, you can tell there's a lot of education that has to happen with our clients because they're used to a meal plan, a food list, recipes to follow, and that I think that like 1.0, that's probably okay to just give people some awareness of what might be a healthier choice versus not. But at some point, you can't outsource your health. You have to figure out, what is the thing? Who am I? What does my body do? What does my body need? I have a really high fat diet, low carb diet, not because I'm keto, but because I do better on that. When I eat a lot of carbs, I feel super lethargic. I get puffy and bloated and things like that, but my energy is great on fats. And so it doesn't mean I never have carbs, obviously, but it's just like, that's what works for me. But someone might look at that and go, oh, Jill does keto or Atkins or whatever. And it's just like, no, I don't box myself in. I think there's a continuum, and it takes a high level of self-awareness and body awareness to figure out what those things are. And most of us aren't in touch with our body's sensations, to be honest. Like dieting makes us dumber. It literally takes us out of our body and says, instead of eating when you're hungry, why don't you eat every 3 hours? And so we're having to unlearn a lot of that kind of rule stuff and come back to, okay, how does my body respond to these kind of things? And that takes time. It takes 6 months. It takes a year. It took me 3 full years. And so we have to, at least for me, I have to put this message forward that it's not going to, now you can teach someone these things in a mere couple of weeks, right? 21 days, 6 weeks, whatever. But the practice of all of this, moderation, mindfulness, self-compassion, all these kind of things is probably going to take years. But the cool thing is it's a final solution. It's work that never has to be done again.
So if someone's working with you on either like personal development or business development, it seems like, and I mean, you've put a lot of work into this ability to teach someone so that then they can go do it themselves, right? So they're not like stuck needing to outsource for, their health or any decisions they make throughout their life. So you do a good job of this, but for the average person who again is thinking, okay, well, I want to take responsibility for my own, health and life and business and all of these things, but I still need help. Like, how do you balance this? I need to go get some help, bring it back to me to make some decisions, but then I need to be able to trust myself that I don't need this person all the time, and then I can go and do it myself. So what are some pieces of advice you can give people who aren't working with you for how to do that, how to balance that?
Yeah, it's funny because when I start working with new clients a lot, they are very much in the mode of like needing to ask everything, right? Like they constantly have to check in with me. Is this okay? Is it okay? I think all of that, whether it's in nutrition or business or whatever, I think that way of being, like check, make sure my coach and like everything like gives it a check mark, is a really fragile approach, right? It sort of says, if I don't get Jill's approval on this, decision, that my business is going to crumble. And your business isn't that fragile. Your nutrition isn't that fragile. Metabolism isn't that fragile. So you can't fuck this up. Like you actually can't. So, and I get it when people come in, they want to make sure they're not doing anything wrong. They want to make sure they don't mess it up, that it doesn't implode, whatever, right? They have this sort of like catastrophe mindset. And I get it. It's fine. I think dieting does us a disservice because it makes us feel like we could mess it up at any second. And we can't. Like we can't mess this up. I always tell my girls, like nothing is irreversible. And if it's online business, it's deletable, it's figure outable. Like there's always a solution. So I think if you're coming in with this idea that one tiny thing can ruin everything, that's short-sighted and it's not true. And so having what I consider to be more of like an anti-fragile or like stable mindset and trusting that what you have built isn't easily broken. So if you have a business, and I work with a lot of people come in, they're like intermediate business owners and they want to take things to the next level. And maybe it's the first time they've had a coach. And so they feel like they need to organize everything and they need to make sure, whatever. So when they come in, they have that energy. One of the things that I do as a coach, and I don't know that it works for me and it works for my clients. I don't know that I would necessarily tell people to do this, but I'm not super accessible to my clients. And that's not because I'm like a dick or I don't care about them or whatever. It's actually a tool to help them have the full experience without needing to talk to me about it. So for example, I've had clients that are like, it might be a Saturday or Sunday and stuff. And they're like, I could tell they're really like something's going wrong, like something's happening. And it's a big stress moment. And they jump into the Facebook group and they're like, what should I do? What should I do? I don't respond. Not because I don't see it, not because I don't care, but I'm like, number one, it's Saturday.
Yeah.
And number two, let's just see how it plays out. Let's just see what happens. So then what happens is I'm always there to catch them, right? So I'll, like Monday morning, I'll be like, hey, so-and-so, sorry, I couldn't get to this weekend. What happened? And then they're like, oh, well, it actually was fine because, and then they'll go into like whatever like ended up happening and was fine. And I'm like, cool, let's debrief on what we can do better next time, whatever. I'm there to help them debrief. But that experience, Ashleigh, is invaluable. They need to have the experience. They need to build up a show of evidence that they're fine and that they can do it and that they're competent and that even if things don't go perfectly, they can figure it out. And so many people don't trust themselves to figure it out, whether it's food or business or whatever. So I'm a big fan of letting someone have like, now, if they were in real trouble, of course I'd be there. But if it was like some small little customer service thing or a client was upset or something, I'm like, let's have the full experience. I need you to rack up a show of evidence that you can trust you. Because at some point, I'm not going to be here. I don't want to be here. And so I don't know. It's worked for me. And I started when I was a nutrition coach back in 2012. We had this moment in the business. I had 5 coaches working for me. We were doing all one-on-one fat loss programs. And I had one client who texted us like 73 times on a Sunday. And at first I was like, can this woman not make any decisions without us? Like, can she actually live at all without us? And I was getting really frustrated. And then I had this moment, like she's going to the grocery store, texting us, like sending us labels, all this kind of stuff. And I had this moment where I was like, this is my fault. This whole situation is actually my fault. I enabled this. I attracted this kind of person. The way that I've been showing up has said that I'm available for this. And this is not only is this like annoying to me, but this is a disservice to her. Like I'm literally making her so dependent on me. And I can say there are a lot of coaches that like being dependent upon. I think there's this feeling of worthiness and whatever. And I'm like, not me. I don't want people blowing up my phone on Sunday. And I'm like, I created this. And from then on, we took complete responsibility, put in a ton of boundaries and a ton of expectation management, and a lot of things I just shared with you about giving them not being available and letting them have the full experience. And at the end of the day, I don't know that everyone loves that, to be honest. I think they maybe feel abandoned by their coach or whatever, but the ones who are attracted to me and understand me, and I'm pretty open about it. That's how I am. They do see it as a service, and then they're able to graduate and not have to work with me for years. So I noticed it with the fitness stuff and the nutrition stuff, and then moved it into the business as well.
I love this. Anybody who's again watching this is seeing that I was like taking notes while you were talking, because there's a lot that I want to come back to. And like, even for myself, this is just so valuable, but it's really useful too, what you're saying, this not being so accessible, that is totally applicable to all of life, because anybody who has a smartphone or a laptop or who works and has an email knows that we have now created this general culture for ourselves where anytime someone sends us a message, we see it immediately and we feel like we have to respond immediately. And that is not helping anybody across the board. So I actually love this. And there are so many times I've had coaching experiences where people are doing the same to me. They're kind of relying on me too heavily, but you'll see that the way they ask the question, it's completely obvious. They know what the answer is. They just want you to tell them the answer because they feel like they trust you more than they trust themselves. And that's something I've tried to show people is like, you don't trust me more than you trust yourself. The whole point is that I want you to be able to trust yourself, and you're telling me something you already know the answer to. But it can be really difficult. Okay. Going back to the investing in yourself thing, because about a month or two ago, I made an investment in myself. Working with you very briefly, I had a business opportunity that was coming up, and I just felt like I needed to run some ideas by somebody who was in this world and who, I could talk to and would give me some straight answers. And so I had a consultation with you. We had a very, very productive call, which I told you, resulted in me getting a business contract that I was very happy with. And so I really, really appreciate that. That was an awesome opportunity. And it really made me feel, it's interesting too, because it made me feel empowered that I took the step to invest and speak to a professional, because that's how much I valued my own time and my own work and the work that I was going to put out there. I didn't want to, not get what I was worth. And so it was a very cool experience from start to finish. And I, of course, recommend it. But my question is, and I know that there isn't like a hard and fast rule here, but do you, in your experience, is there like I'm making this much money with my business, this is a good amount that I can invest back? Because I feel like some people maybe invest too much and never kind of sit back and think about and enjoy what they're doing. And there may be some people, and I feel like I've been guilty of this in the past, where I'm like, I'm not good enough yet to invest. I can't give too much money back yet. So is there like, what do you think about that? Yeah.
So this is really interesting because it's kind of like thinking that you're unworthy to go to the gym until you're fit. Same exact thing, right? So when it comes to business investing, honestly, I waited about 18 months before I invested. And at that time, Jill Fit was making six figures and I invested $10,000 in a coach. And that was my very first big investment. And I didn't have the money, to be honest. I didn't have it like sitting around. I didn't have a credit card that had that limit on it at that time. But I reached out to someone who, do you know Rachel Cosgrove and Alan Cosgrove? Mm-hmm. You know them? Yeah. So they were my first mentors. And Rachel was sort of doing what I wanted to be doing, but like maybe 5 years ahead of me. And so I reached out to her and she said, yeah, Jill, I do coaching. If you want to do like a little 30-minute call, it's $375. And I was like, what? Like I was a personal trainer charging pennies. So I remember being like, wait, what? Like that was so much money. And I remember being like, wow, that's a lot of money. But you know what? If I can figure out how she charged that and I can start charging that, then it's worth it. So I paid her the money. We got on the call, a 30-minute call. At the end of the call, she pitched me on her $10,000 year-long mastermind. And I remember being like mind blown. Like, how could anyone even say that number? Like that was a car to me at the time. Mm-hmm. And I remember being like, okay, I'll think about it. Bye. And like jumped off the phone like most people do. Had no intention of following through. A couple of weeks went by and I was just like, God, I'm super stuck in my business. I like feel like I've reached the ceiling. At this point, we were, I had 5 coaches. Like I said, we were all maxed out on one-on-one clients. We didn't have anywhere else to put people. We didn't know how to grow the team. Everyone was exhausted. And I knew I needed someone to sort of access to someone's brain who could take me to the next level. And I remember thinking, you know what? I wonder if I could just launch a like literally brand new program. I have no idea what I'm doing. Just like launch it out of my ass to make this money. And I launched a year-long mentorship. It was at the time fitness and nutrition, a little bit of mindset, and maybe like a tiny bit of business on the back end. And I was charging $100 a month and for 12 months and I got 14 people and I made like $17,000 and I was like, I'm rich. And I remember paying Rachel. And here's the cool thing about this was I would never have launched that had I not had the aspirational sort of goal of paying Rachel. So before the mentorship even began, I started becoming someone different. Mm-hmm. And that's the power of investment. It's not even like you said, you just said it right before when you asked this question, it changed how you showed up. Okay, I'm going to invest in myself. I'm going to put some money on the line. I normally don't do this. You probably were like, okay, it was a signal to your higher self that you were like, okay, I'm actually leveling up. And that experience is invaluable. So for me, it wasn't even, I mean, I learned a bunch from them and whatever. I'm sure I learned a ton, but it wasn't even that. It was just who it forced me to be when I invested. And I don't think everyone needs to, invest money they don't have or come up with money or $10,000. But there's something so powerful about even like, $300, $500, $1,000 when it is not easy to invest that, right? Like all of us, because the safest thing to do is hold your money, right? That's the safest thing is keep it in your pocket. Mm-hmm. So in order to invest, you have to see what the value might be. And I always say that like the biggest sort of, is it which comes first, the chicken or the egg? Do you invest and then that's what gets you to the next level? Or do you wait and like hoard your money to be ready to invest? And I really think the people who are investing in a scary, like, I don't know if I'll make this back. I don't know, but they trust themselves to figure it out. They have the most success. Mm-hmm. So if I could go back, I'd probably invest a little bit earlier. I invested fairly early. I don't think there's like a ratio of like, okay, once you're making this, you can invest this much. I don't know. I pretty much like in coaching and mentorship at this point, I'm investing $25,000 to $35,000 a year just on coaching. But you work your way up to that. Now it's just my value system. I'm sure for you, after having that experience, you go, yeah, I'm actually probably willing to invest more now because I see it pay off. Mm-hmm. And so investing for me is a value system. It's not, will I invest? It's, where am I going to invest? Mm-hmm. And so once you kind of move to that level, you just go, okay, all of my income, and I've just seen it grow over time as a result of my investments. Mm-hmm. So if you've never invested, just invest in something small, have the full experience, and then you'll have an opportunity to, and this is actually how I set up my business model at Jill Fit. We call it an ascension model where like there's a beginner sort of course, and then you move into like more of an intermediate course, then there's an advanced option, and of course, one-on-one at the top. And the price point goes up as the person becomes more proficient as a business owner. So the sort of stepwise fashion, the beginner course is $2,000. first time anyone's ever invested in their business, huge like learning curve, all this kind of stuff. Like that's a lot for someone who's never invested. Think about traditional jobs. You don't have to pay money to make money. You just make money. So getting someone who comes from a corporate background or even a personal training background to feel like they have to actually spend money to then make money is a paradigm shift. So $2,000 is a little bit scary, but it's doable for someone who's beginner. Next level up is 7,500. And so it's like, if that is sticker shock for you, then you're not proficient enough in your business. Like you're not at the intermediate, what I would consider be intermediate level. That should feel a little bit like a stretch, but it shouldn't feel like sticker shock. And then you move up to the mastermind, it's like $15,000, $16,000. And then one-on-one coaching with me I don't really do that anymore, but if I did, it would be more. And so you should feel like, yeah, it's a little bit scary, but my business should be able to support it. I should have enough reps at this point. I should have enough success that I know that I'm going to make that money back. And ironically, like the easiest sells are the higher ticket stuff because people just know their value at that point, right? They've had
been
enough
through it
success.
A couple times.
They've had enough success. Yeah.
So when is it a gut thing for you in terms of when you were looking at your first investment into your business and who you would give that money to, who you would invest in to get that back? Was that sort of a gut, like this is just a person who seems to be where I want to be? Or do you have any kind of golden rules for how to make sure you're investing in the right help?
Yes, this is such a good question because I've made a lot of mistakes. So when I knew I wanted to hire my first business mentor, I was just coming out of the like competition space. I was a figure competitor for a lot of years and I was doing a lot of fitness modeling. And so I sort of looked at who was on top in like those spaces. And it was people like Jamie Eason and Monica Brandt. And, they were on the cover of, Oxygen magazine and whatever. And I always looked up to those girls. But when I thought about it, I was like, my goal isn't a magazine cover. Like at that point I had a couple and I was like, my goal isn't to be writing for Oxygen magazine. My goal isn't to be working the Olympia at a booth, right? Like that wasn't my goal. So I was like, as much as I really respect the people in that industry or whatever, that wasn't my goal set anymore. I was like, I really want to, instead of being a woman with a business, I want to be a businesswoman. Totally different skill set. So I looked around and I saw that Rachel at the time she was speaking on stages. She had a couple of books out. She was writing a column for Women's Health. And what I saw was she was having a lot more success because of her brain and not her looks. And that was a shift that I had made early in the business. I was like, okay, it's not about my body and do I have a six pack and like who's looking? It's like, am I helping people? And so I really started to look at who was having the kind of success that I wanted. At that time, she was working with her husband, Alan. And at the time I was working with my ex-husband in our business. So it seemed sort of aligned. I have also, and that was a great sort of first step for me, learned a ton from her. I have also made the mistake of choosing coaches or masterminds based on sort of status, like, oh, who's in there? Who's going to be there? Like, and I live in LA, so it's easy to get sort of caught up in like the clickiness of this area. And I joined a mastermind several years ago that the person who was running it, I wasn't really like personality wise, we didn't necessarily vibe. And that's, I think, a key thing to remember is this someone I could hang out with? Is this someone I could spend the weekend with? Because you're literally going to be spending a lot of time with this people. Because here's the thing, the person who's running that mastermind will attract a lot of people like them. So it's not just that person, it's the other people in the group. So you have to ask yourself, is that my vibe? Is that the kind of people that I want to hang with? There's nothing, it's not better or worse, whatever. It's just for me, what am I looking for? Do I need strategy? Do I need accountability? Do I need community? And what am I in this for the right reasons? I joined a mastermind this year, totally different experience, not status driven, not cliquey, just straight up like good vibes, like lots of strategy help, just like people who support you. And so I think you need to look at not only the person's success and where they're at, but also their personality. Like, would you like to hang out with this person? And also the other thing is, I think it's okay to ask for referrals and ask for testimonials and stuff like that. Like I think, and I'm obviously a coach. I love when people are like, hey, Jill, do you have some people I could chat about working with you? I'm like, yeah, of course. If you're a good coach, you're not going to be, that's not going to feel threatening to you. I'm like, yeah, here's dozens of people I've worked with that have gotten great results. Go talk to any of them. They'll tell you truthfully exactly what it's like to work with me. And if you're a good coach, then you shouldn't be scared of that. So I think if you're thinking about working with someone, feel free to ask them, what kind of successes have they gotten their clients? What do they feel like they're the best at? And then also just go back to you and go, what do I need?
Mm-hmm.
Do I need community? Do I need accountability? Do I just need strategy? Do I need just friends? Like sometimes you have to pay for friends. Like if you just don't have people in your local area that get it, you might have to pay to be in these rooms. I think investment personally is non-negotiable, whether it's your health, your business, your fitness, whatever. I have like 3 gym memberships. I literally don't, and it's not like because I'm rich or anything. It's just like, that's my priority. My priority is my health. So why would I skimp on that? So looking at even just like your purchasing history, like if, like where do you spend your money? That will tell you your priorities, and it's not better or worse, but that will give you an indication of what's important to you.
Yeah, I love that. If you ask somebody for references and they give you shit, that's a massive
huge red flag. Huge red flag.
Yeah, turn the other way. Okay. Talk to me a little bit about masterminds, because this is one thing that I have never engaged in. I see a lot of successful, awesome people doing them, going to them, hosting their own. How is this different than, or is it like these sort of like, expos that you go to for a weekend or you sign up and do like an online course that, you're having like live Zoom calls? Is that a mastermind? Is it just semantics? Like, tell me why that's different, and maybe in some cases a more rich experience than other ways you can, connect with coaches.
Yeah. So I would consider a mastermind to be different than coaching. Okay. So coaching is like, I am learning, I need to learn this thing, and I need to find the person who has that knowledge. And you can hire a coach. You can do that via a course. You can do that via a book or even a podcast, right? So information is everywhere. I love that. Like everything I ever need to know is a podcast, a book, a coach, a course away. That's a little bit different. So coaching is great, but that's like, the person up here knows all the stuff and they're telling you, and then you implement it. Masterminding is a little bit different because the focus is there is a coaching component, but the idea is that it becomes a sort of brain share. So the power of a mastermind is the other people in it, because they're coming in with all different kinds of experiences that are different than yours. And like the word you used was rich. And that really is what it is. It's like, it's a richer experience. You're not needing a ton of coaching necessarily. Right. I'm not needing to like learn something like, really, maybe I need an idea. Maybe I want to learn, I want to implement something a little bit better, become more efficient, become more effective, but I'm not going to someone and being like, teach me in that way. It's more like, how can we contribute to each other's experience? So it's not about necessarily straight up strategy all the time, right? It's not like do this, do this, do this. It's very much like, I would say, connecting with other people who have similar experiences. So it's funny, I was at this mastermind last week. So I'm in a year-long one. We had our last retreat last week. It was 4 days. And the interesting thing about this was these people, like I said, multiple seven-figure business owners. And it's all the same stuff as someone who's just starting out. Like in terms of, it's all the same, like mindset struggles, like, am I good enough? And is this thing going to work? And what if I have a bad launch? And, what do I do if it goes sideways? Like, it's all the same stuff. It's just more zeros. Literally, that's the only difference. Of course, someone who's maybe further along understands that it can't crumble, right? Like there's always something to do, but a lot of the same mindset struggles and all the same components. So I think about it like, it's like a cake, right? Like, so someone who's just getting started has an easy bake oven cake, and someone who's 7-figure business owner has like a 7-tiered wedding cake. Same exact ingredients, butter, sugar, flour, right? All the same ingredients, but just different outcome based on, experience and success and choices and things like that. So a mastermind is really the most about the community and making it like the brain share of who brings what to the table and how can you implement things and rely on people and have a support team sort of in your corner. But we do a lot of mindset stuff, to be honest, like the one that I'm in, because everyone knows kind of what to do, right? There's tutorials you can watch on like what to do. Yeah. It's a lot of just supporting one another and getting to the next level, because when you want to go from like a 6-figure to 7-figure business, or, you want to double your revenue, a lot of it comes down to how you think about it and how you can sustainably implement it.
Yeah. So are you hosting? Do you have a mindset? Okay.
Yeah. So I have a mastermind I've been running for 5 years. Okay. And it is for this year. We're actually changing it up a little bit. It's going to be for people who are making 6 figures or more, and who want to increase their revenue by 50 to 100% next year, which is like amazing that we're in a space that you could actually do that. Like no other job could you like double your income overnight, but you can do that in entrepreneurship.
That's incredible. And I mean, I feel like more than maybe ever before, this type of format is highly desirable because we are coming out of a space where we felt so isolated and felt like there was a lack of richness in terms of how we were interacting with each other and being inspired by one another. Like I'm thinking about how different over the course of a year, my work life is different now. Of course, the baby threw another wrench into it, but like all of these expos and events and like, okay, well, let's meet up somewhere and do some informal mind shares, I suppose. Right.
Yep.
And that we had a couple of years where like that was not happening for a lot of people. So I feel like this is absolutely a time when people are going to be really jumping on this stuff.
It's funny because I've heard people say like, oh, masterminds are over, or like, oh, they're so played out. And I'm just like, people always need connection. Like they always will. Maybe it'll look different, but people are always going to need to connect with other people who are doing similar stuff. And if you like, luckily I live in like Los Angeles and everyone's an entrepreneur, but like if you live in the Midwest or you live somewhere where like you're a small town, people, not only do people not know what you're doing, but a lot of times they are like naysayers, right? They go, that will never work or whatever, right? So you have to find spaces. It's really hard to grow and it's really hard to be successful in this space if you're not around anyone who gets it. Mm-hmm. And so at some point you might have to pay to play a little bit. Yeah. You might have to pay to get into some of these rooms to get access to the brains that you need to get to the next level. And to me, I know we get a lot like caught up a lot in like money and, and it's really easy to feel like I don't have the cash, but there's investments. Like I said, you can make a $500 investment. You can make $300 investment. You can make $1,000 investment. Just start there and then have the experience of, wow, I invested $1,000 and this past year I made $10,000 more in my business. And then you go, oh, this does work, right? Mm-hmm. I think it's a misconception that you can just keep doing the same thing year after year, the same strategy and launch the same people and expect your business to grow. Like you just won't, right? You have to innovate. You have to figure out a different strategy. And if what you're doing is not working or it's not helping you grow, if that's your goal, some people are just like, I'm good, right? I'm good in this like holding pattern and it's fine. And I make good money and whatever. But if you really have a big growth goal, then you have to do something different. And sometimes you don't know what that is, or sometimes you need the support of people who have done it before. Yeah. So I'm a big advocate.
You're also a big advocate of people, maybe this word's aggressive, but demanding what they're worth, right? Getting what they're worth from their work, right? So how do you feel about stuff like, for example, like Substack and stuff where people are now putting content that maybe before was a free blog post and now you're paying for it? And another example being maybe podcasts that are behind paywalls and things like that. How do you feel about that in general? And in terms of how an individual would decide this is a better choice for me rather than providing this free content that may bring people in to then later pay for something?
Mm-hmm. You'll know, like you'll be at a place where you'll know. So I'm not, excuse me, I'm not that person who's like, you just got personal training certified, like charge, $500 an hour. I'm like, no, like you're not good yet. Right. Like you got to get the reps up. Yeah. Yeah. Like you have to get your reps up. Yeah. And I think I probably did I charged like too little for too long. I think some people will just stay there. And so I think you have to notice, and this is what I do with my students is I'm like, okay, you'll know because you won't get any no's. You'll get on sales calls and everyone's like, yes, which is a great feeling, right? You just convert everybody. But when you're, converting more than 80% of your sales calls, your price is too cheap. It just is. You're at a level where the demand is high enough to now justify a price increase. So for someone like, I don't know, I listened to the Sam Harris podcast. His podcast is now behind a paywall. People at that level or in that position are in a position because the demand is so high. Yeah. So I'm just like, yes. And the market always knows. So if you put it behind a paywall and then no one pays, right, then you might not have been ready. You might not have been ready. So you'll know based on what the outcome is. Mm-hmm. And if you put something behind a paywall and no one pays, then number one, you're not quite ready to do that yet. Like the demand maybe is not high enough, or you're just not a good marketing. Like you're just not a good enough marketer to build the value enough that someone want to give you money for that. So I think you will know because you'll be in demand. This is something I'm sure that's happened with you, especially now with the baby, is like your time is more valuable than it's ever been, right? Because you're like, I want to spend time with him and, whatever. You have a lot of different competing priorities. So then you go one way to value that less time that you have is to bump your prices up. Yeah. Because my one-on-one pricing is pretty high because I kind of don't want to take anyone, right? Like I kind of don't want to because I have other places that I can put people. Yes. I think if you are are going to put something behind a paywall, you need to have other ways that people know that you're good. There needs to be enough free content elsewhere that people understand. Because I made the mistake early on of not giving away a lot of my content for free because I felt like I was in scarcity. Oh, like, I'm going to give everything away. Why would they pay me? If it's all on my blog or if it's all on social media, why would they pay me? And what happened is I was holding everything so close to the vest that no one knew I was good.
Yeah.
They didn't know what I did. They didn't know how to work with me. And so then I just went full tilt into the blog and gave everything away. And that's when my business really started to take off. So there needs to be enough free, accessible content for people long enough to build an audience, to build trust with that audience, and then to be able to, kind of earn the right to increase your rates or put something behind a payroll.
So good. Okay.
But here's the thing. You need to have something that is behind a paywall. And is that I always say that investment is it's like aspirational for people. Like, give them an opportunity to buy something expensive, right? Not everyone in your audience is going to, but shit, if you have, dozens or maybe hundreds of clients at a low ticket membership, like there's a subset of those people that want to go deeper with you. Give them that opportunity to pay you thousands instead of hundreds. So I don't know. To me, I think there's aspirational levels. I mean, I like investing. I like talking about my investments. I'm proud of those things. And so I think if you just give away too much stuff for free or too low ticket for too long, you're missing a huge opportunity for those people in your audience that want to go deeper with you.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, I'm not going to keep you too much longer. A couple more quick questions. So what percentage of your work right now in terms of the time that you spend is dedicated towards fitness business stuff versus fitness? Because again, folks who follow you know that fitness is still very much a part of your life, and you put out some great content for that. But it seems to me that there's a bit of a switch towards this fitness business stuff and coaching and mentorship on that side of it. Do you see yourself continuing to do that to a point where maybe there isn't any of the straight fitness stuff anymore?
I've had so many business coaches tell me to just drop fitness, drop nutrition. Dude, I'm a meathead. Like, I just am. And I know we have that in common. And I'm like, as much as I, and I do sometimes get sick of the fitness stuff. I'm like, I've talked about like lifting again, but I always come back to it. Cause to me, I'm like, it's just part of who I am. It's where I started. I was in the fitness industry for a lot longer than I've been in the business space. I started business coaching in 2012, and it was sort of like for people who just wanted to maybe casually start a blog, or it started very small. Now, probably about 3/4 of the revenue at JillFit is business revenue. Obviously it's higher ticket and it's just more impactful for people. The fitness and nutrition stuff, it's fairly low ticket. Typically everything's $100 or less. I do have a nutrition philosophy called the Moderation 365 method. And we just launched a certification in 2020, which was really exciting. We've had this course that was a sort of Gen Pop, just direct to consumer course for many years. We've had thousands of people go through that course. And then we actually made it into a curriculum for professionals. It's now accredited with a whole bunch of different, certifying bodies. And so that's we're spending, that's a whole separate arm of the business. I have a whole head of coaching that handles that whole side of the business. So I can sort of focus on what my zone of genius is which is content creation and coaching. So it's exciting, and it does feel a little bit sort of like pulled to different places, but the context of my business coaching will always be fitness and nutrition. That's my lifeblood. That's the industry that I know the most. So if I'm using examples, I'm not going to use a dating example or, I don't know, a graphic design example. I'm going to use a fitness or a nutrition coaching program as an example in my business courses. So it just makes it a lot easier. I think that it is valuable to have a business coach, someone who understands your industry, right? Yes. I was actually talking to a business coach a couple of years ago, and I was mentioning something about lead generation or whatever. And he was like, oh, just make a PDF on how to get a six pack. And I was like, this person clearly doesn't understand our industry. There's just so much more nuance. So I think having a business coach who understands also the topic area and contextually, I think that that's really important too. So that other piece, I don't know if it'll ever go away. It's still part of me. I get antsy. I want to create a new fitness program. I want to go deeper with nutrition stuff. We'll see.
That's awesome. Yeah. If it was easy enough to get a six pack by just downloading somebody's PDF.
PDF.
Can you imagine? The world would be a very different place. And that makes me happy too, because I know a lot of us, I have really kind of followed and been helped a lot by your fitness business, acumen, but like, we still like to see the workout, like meathead stuff too. So I'm glad that still exists.
Love it.
Where do you see your business and your work life and what you're doing on a day-to-day basis? Where do you see that in like 2, 5, 10 years? And do you do that practice frequently where you look ahead and think about where you want to be?
So I hadn't, except for the last couple of years.
Yeah.
I think especially, I've been in the industry, like I said, for 11 years, and turning 40 this last year, I was more like, okay, number one, do I really want to still be like showing up on social media every single day in my 50s and 60s? Like, I don't know that I'm like, maybe I have like 10 more years of like front facing stuff. I don't know that I'll ever stop working. I love the fitness industry. I love the business industry. It might be a different capacity. But I was like, I think I have like 10 more years of this type of business, which is personal brand business, social media content creation, courses, masterminding, stuff like that. The second thing is that I want to make, at this point, I make enough money to live comfortably. I'm not a big, I don't need like tons of money, but I want to make sure that my family's taken care of. We're in that weird place where like, we're having babies, but then like also our parents are getting older. So for me, I really had this thing of like, I want to make sure that like I'm set up retirement wise, I'm putting as much money away as I can, investing as much as I can. And also that my family has what they need to, as my parents get older, something happens to them. Like, and I really had this a couple of years ago, like, okay, this is what, it wasn't just like a hobby anymore. Like, oh, this is fun. I'll just like keep doing it for as long as okay, no, this is something I want to really look at. So and also I hired like 6 new team members in the last year and a half, and they need to know what the company vision is, right? Like now all of a sudden I'm on the hook for like their livelihood and stuff like that. And so they need to know we have launch goals, we have launch calendars, we work backwards with all that stuff. Because I want them to know and have a sense of safety that like they have a job for a long time, right? I'm not going to just be like, oh, let's like launch something next week. It needs to be a lot more organized, and they need to be included in that process, because now they're full time with me. Like their livelihood, their family, their welfare is dependent on how well our business does. And I like that. I think I was scared of that for a long time. Now I'm just like, yeah, I love that responsibility. Again, it's like that leadership thing where like, okay, you're stepping into a new role. And so now that we have so many people on a team, we can't afford to not really plan. That's a big part of it.
That's exciting. Is your team remote? Are they where you are? Do you guys get together regularly? How does that work?
Yeah, they're all remote. We meet every week, and we just do like, and then if we have a launch or a live event, we're pretty much everyone's all hands on deck. So people come into town. We'll host a lot of our events in LA. They'll come in to be here for the whole live event or launch. Like, I have a sort of like right-hand man. He's what we call an integrator. So if you've ever read the book Rocket Fuel, I've heard of that book. Essentially, we have like a visionary and we have an integrator, and I'm sort of the visionary of the company. Where are we going? What's like high level like creation? Who are we as a brand? Values, things like that. And then the integrator, which is sort of like, I guess you could say like kind of a project manager or head of operations, and they come behind me and like implement everything. So they write all the marketing emails, not like from scratch. Obviously I have a lot of emails that I've written. So they kind of take that stuff. They know my voice. They write the sales pages. They run the launch, like all that kind of stuff. They'll come in, they live in Austin. They'll come in just for the launch week, and we do everything here. So it just depends on kind of what we have going on. So I usually see the team in person a couple times a year, and then we meet every week.
Awesome. One last question.
Sure.
Would you ever consider, and I know I'm not the only woman who is thinking this in their head, would you ever consider expanding your empire to fitness apparel?
Ooh.
Because I love the style, the aesthetic, the workout aesthetic is amazing. Like, I just love what you show up in to work out. It looks amazing, super sexy, muscle, like shoulders out, quads. Yeah. I love it. I would imagine it's probably like a very maybe annoying and tedious business, and if you're not passionate about it. So I'm kind of tongue in cheek here, but make your own leggings.
I love this. This is I feel so filled up. I need to come and talk to you every week to get my self-esteem up. I do. I like it too. I can't see myself doing apparel, to be honest. But I do work with a couple of companies that I do like referrals and affiliates and stuff with. I'm a big fan of Carbon 38.
Yes.
You can use Jill Fit at checkout to get the discount.
I have done this.
Yes, it's so good, right? And it's one of those things where, and I agree with you, I think a part of being able to show up and be excited. I mean, well, first of all, muscles are the best accessory anyway.
Yes.
Like it's the best. It just tells people what you're about. They don't have to say anything. They know what you're about. And I think especially, you know, like I know I mentioned this a couple of times, like turning 40, you do have this thing as a woman. You're like, oh, like, do I just like crawl under the table now? Like, am I not allowed to wear like sexy stuff or like look, you know, like really take pride in how I look? Mm-hmm. And I think if your mom, maybe you're listening to that too, and you're like, yeah, like, you know, I'm a mom now and that's my priority. And I think there's something really powerful and an example to show other women what's possible in their 40s and 50s and beyond and like what that can look like. And I don't know, just owning it. I actually probably wear less clothes now than I did in my 20s when I was a competitor. So I don't know. I think there's an energetic to it as well. So I personally can't see myself doing that. I mean, maybe getting into like maybe more supplements, white labeling, stuff like that. Probably not apparel though.
Okay.
I am thinking about potentially doing like some sort of not like a gift guide, but like just talking more about fashion, just because people are constantly asking me like, where'd you get that? Where'd you get that? And whatever. So I might do like just something where people can just access all the links that I use.
Yes. I love it. Just because again, from a like fitness professional standpoint, I live in workout clothes. I have zero qualms about that. And we are now in a world. I mean, I guess you could say the 80s was the same where like workout clothes is fashion. And I just I love your style. So
and it also just like impacts how you show up, right? Like go to the gym and like a new like one shoulder sports bra, it's just like, I don't know, it just feels different. You just want to work harder and you're just like feeling yourself.
And I will say like going back to working out after the baby, I mean, I feel like because I'm an older mom, I had less of this like, oh my God, I don't have a 6-pack like 3 weeks after giving birth. What do I do? Like I'm pretty happy with how I've been taking care of myself, but it is still, you know, you are going through changes in your body and you are kind of seeing things differently. And I'm like, okay, how do I go to the gym, you know, 2 months postpartum? Maybe I'm not going to wear like the Tarzan outfit that I like normally would, but maybe I will actually. I don't know.
I will. Yeah,
maybe I will. So it's been good. Okay.
I love it.
Jill, I appreciate you so much. You are just an incredible resource in this industry and you've helped me so much. I know you will continue to do that. And I really, really appreciate you kind of giving us a bit of a mastermind today. So thank you.
Well, honestly, I actually want to say if you guys are interested in the business stuff, I didn't know how much of that stuff we're going to talk about today, but if that is sort of piquing your interest, a really easy way to start just like immersing yourself in those conversations is I have a podcast called Fit Biz You. And it's all the episodes are 15 minutes or less. And they're all like super tactical. And it's just like easy listening, listen to like one on your, you know, drive to work or something, just start exposing yourself to some of these conversations, some of the vocabulary. Like I'm glad we talked a lot about masterminds today. Like just expose yourself to some of the ideas to see if it may be something you want to go deeper with and like, you know, a course or a coaching program or a mastermind. But yeah, Fit Biz You publishes twice a week and there's probably over 200 episodes now. And it will just help you, especially if you're newer to the space, just orient yourself and see, you know, that there's a lot of ways to be successful in this space.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time. I'm coming out your way sometime this year. So I will be in contact. Maybe we can get like a beach workout in or something.
Yeah, we'll get a beach workout and like a big steak. It'll be great.
Yes.
Love it.
Perfect day. All right, Jill.
Thanks,
thank
darling.
you so much. Enjoy your day.
It.
And that's it for this week's episode. Thank you guys for listening. As always, thanks again to Jill for being awesome. And I hope you join me again next Tuesday. We've got a couple more, like I said, before the end of the year. As always, you can reach out to me on Instagram at The Muscle Maven. You can send me an email through my website at ashleighvanhouten.com and also see everything else that I'm working on there. My new book, Carnivore-ish, is coming out early in the new year. Super excited about it. It's a little bit more mainstream than my organ meat cookbook. This one's all about protein forward, animal protein centric, delicious, healthy meals. You know, in the days before social media, when everything had to have a title, you could just call it like good food, good real food, but that's not the best cookbook title. So it's called Carnivore-ish instead. And that's available for pre-order. So great Christmas present. Just throwing that out there. And thanks again to our show sponsor, Paleo Valley. Love these guys so much. They make my favorite healthy superfood protein bars, fermented beef sticks. They're really, really good, 100% grass-fed. They don't add any kind of junk that you don't understand, but they do add in some plant-based superfoods, which I frankly would not eat otherwise. So it's good. It gives me food I want to eat, plus some extra healthy stuff that I wouldn't probably incorporate unless they told me to. So paleovalley.com, use the code MMR. You can save 15% on anything you buy. They've got a range of supplements and other stuff as well. So go check them out. And that's it. Have a wonderful day. Get outside, breathe some fresh air. I'm grateful for you, and I'll see you next week.